Hollywood studios have spent millions covering up the most explosive on-set feuds in movie history. They hired lawyers. They made people sign contracts. They even destroyed evidence. But some secrets are too big to stay buried. What really happened when two co-stars refused to film their scenes together? Why did a major production company lose $30 million because of one argument? And which current blockbuster franchise almost never existed because of a feud that started over something incredibly petty? The cover-ups are finally cracking. And what's being exposed will change how you see Hollywood forever. It was supposed to be just another day of filming. Two of Hollywood's biggest action stars were working on what would become one of the most successful franchises in movie history. But something went terribly wrong in that trailer. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Vin Diesel were supposed to be brothers on screen. Behind the cameras, they couldn't stand each other. The tension had been building for months. Every scene together felt like a war zone. Then came the Instagram post that changed everything. The Rock wrote about unprofessional co-stars. He didn't mention names, but everyone knew. Vin Diesel had pushed him too far. But here's what the studios didn't want you to know. The feud was so bad they had to film scenes separately. Two actors playing family members who couldn't even be in the same room together. The Fast and Furious franchise was literally falling apart. Universal Pictures went into crisis mode. They had billions of dollars riding on these movies. Emergency meetings were called. Scripts were rewritten. Entire storylines had to change because two grown men couldn't work together. The Rock eventually left the main franchise completely. He got his own spin-off movie instead. But the damage was already done. The family that was supposed to stick together forever. It was broken. And this was just the beginning. Because what happened next on television sets across Hollywood was even more shocking, but movie sets weren't the only places where Hollywood's biggest stars were secretly at war. Television shows that made millions pretending to be loving families were hiding some of the most vicious feuds in entertainment history. Picture this. For women laughing together on screen. Best friends sharing their deepest secrets. Shopping together. Supporting each other through heartbreak. Millions of viewers thought they were watching real friendship. They were wrong. Behind the scenes of Sex and the City, Kim Cattrall and Sarah Jessica Parker weren't friends at all. In fact, they could barely tolerate being in the same room together. The tension was so thick that other cast members started picking sides. For 6 seasons, they pretended to love each other on camera. But between takes, ice-cold silence. No eye contact. Separate dressing rooms. The 4 women who played best friends weren't even speaking to each other by the end. But the studio had too much money invested to let personal drama destroy their golden goose. So they covered it up. 4 years. Press tours where they sat far apart. Interviews where they gave scripted answers about their friendship. The lie was so convincing that fans believed it completely. Until Kim Cattrall finally broke her silence. She revealed that she was never friends with the other women. That Sarah Jessica Parker was not nice to her. That the whole sisterhood thing was just good acting. And when HBO wanted to bring the show back years later, Kim refused. She would rather walk away from millions of dollars than work with Sarah Jessica Parker again. But even that explosive revelation wasn't the most shocking TV feud that studios tried to hide. What happened on a beloved family sitcom was so much worse. Will Smith was supposed to be the star of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the show that launched his entire career. But there was one cast member who nearly destroyed everything. And when the truth finally came out, it changed how Hollywood handles difficult actors forever. Janet Hubert played Aunt Vivian for 3 seasons. Then suddenly, she was gone. Replaced by a completely different actress. The show pretended like nothing happened. Fans were confused but kept watching. For decades, nobody talked about what really happened. But the truth was explosive. Janet Hubert and Will Smith hated each other. Their fights were legendary. She thought he was arrogant and unprofessional. He thought she was difficult and jealous. The tension affected everyone. Other cast members walked on eggshells. Scripts had to be changed to keep them apart. And finally, the network made a decision that shocked everyone involved. They fired her. Just like that. A main character on one of television's biggest hits was erased and replaced. And both sides stayed silent about the real reason for 25 years. Until a reunion special finally forced them to face each other again. The conversation was uncomfortable. The pain was real. And fans finally understood that their favorite TV family had been hiding a war zone behind all those smiles. But television feuds weren't limited to comedies. Medical dramas were hiding some of the most devastating conflicts in Hollywood history. Television shows could hide their problems for years. But movie sets. When things went wrong during filming, there was nowhere to hide. And some of Hollywood's most beloved romantic movies were actually created in the middle of pure hatred. Everyone knows The Notebook as one of the greatest love stories ever filmed. Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams looking into each other's eyes. Perfect chemistry. A romance so beautiful it made millions of people cry. But here's what Paramount Pictures desperately tried to keep secret. Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams couldn't stand each other during filming. Their fights were so intense that the director had to call breaks just to separate them. Ryan actually asked the director to bring in another actress to run lines with instead of Rachel. He said she was impossible to work with. She thought he was unprofessional and rude. The two people playing passionate lovers were barely speaking to each other off camera. The studio panicked. They had invested everything in this movie. If the leads hated each other, how could audiences believe their love story? So they brought in acting coaches. They had private meetings. They even threatened to replace both actors if they couldn't make it work. Somehow, they pulled it off. The movie became a massive hit. And here's the twist nobody saw coming. Ryan and Rachel started dating in real life years later. The hatred turned into actual love. But during filming, it was war. And The Notebook wasn't even close to being the most explosive movie set in Hollywood history. Charlie's Angels was supposed to be a fun action movie. 3 beautiful women kicking bad guys and looking amazing while doing it. But behind the cameras, one of those angels was making everyone's life miserable. Lucy Liu and Bill Murray had a confrontation so intense that witnesses still won't talk about it on the record. Reports say they screamed at each other. That Murray made personal attacks. That Liu fought back just as hard. The argument was so bad that Murray was replaced in the sequel. A main character from a hit movie just disappeared. And Columbia Pictures made sure everyone involved signed agreements to never discuss what really happened. But the rumors leaked anyway. Stories about Murray being difficult. About Liu standing up for herself. About a movie set that became so toxic that people dreaded coming to work. The studio spent millions on damage control. They hired publicists to spin the story. They scheduled separate interviews so the actors never had to appear together. They even edited scenes to minimize their screen time together. But sometimes, the conflicts on movie sets weren't just about personality clashes. Sometimes, they were about actors taking their roles too seriously. And when method acting went wrong, it created some of the most dangerous situations in Hollywood history. Jared Leto is famous for staying in character between takes. But during Suicide Squad filming, his method acting went too far. He sent disturbing gifts to his co-stars. Dead animals. Used condoms. Violent letters. What was supposed to be professional preparation became psychological warfare. Other actors complained to the director. Some considered quitting. The set became so uncomfortable that Warner Brothers had to step in. They hired security consultants. They brought in therapists. They even considered firing their Joker because his behavior was affecting everyone else's ability to do their jobs. But even these explosive conflicts pale in comparison to the legendary feud that changed how Hollywood operates forever. A rivalry so intense it created rules that studios still follow today, but there's one feud in Hollywood history that makes every modern conflict look like a playground argument. A rivalry so vicious, so personal, so destructive that it changed how studios handle difficult stars forever. Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. 2 of the biggest names in Hollywood's golden age. Both Oscar winners. Both legends. And they absolutely despised each other with a passion that lasted for decades. It started with jealousy. Joan Crawford was the bigger star first. She had the glamour, the fame, the money. But Bette Davis had something Joan wanted desperately. Respect as a serious actress. Critical acclaim. The kind of reputation that outlasts beauty. The hatred built slowly. Snide comments in interviews. Stealing each other's roles. Dating each other's ex-husbands just to cause pain. But in 1962, their rivalry reached a level that no one had ever seen before. Warner Brothers convinced them to star together in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. 2 aging actresses playing sisters who torment each other. The studio thought their real-life hatred would create incredible on-screen chemistry. They were right. But the cost was almost too much to bear. Bette Davis made Joan Crawford's life hell during filming. She kicked her in scenes where it wasn't scripted. She made sure Crawford's close-ups were filmed in harsh lighting. She even put weights in her dress during a scene where Davis had to drag her across the floor. Crawford fought back just as viciously. She wore padding to make herself heavier during that dragging scene. She turned other cast members against Davis. She even campaigned against Davis getting an Oscar nomination for the role. But here's the part that shows how deep their hatred really went. When the movie became a massive hit, the studio wanted to make more films with both actresses. Easy money, right? Wrong. Davis and Crawford's feud had become so public, so nasty, that it was affecting their careers. Other actors didn't want to work with them. Directors were afraid to hire them together. Studios started writing contracts that specifically prevented feuding co-stars from destroying productions. The Bette Davis and Joan Crawford rivalry created the template that Hollywood still uses today. Separate promotional tours, different interview schedules, legal agreements about professional behavior on set. All because two women couldn't control their hatred for each other. Crawford died in 1977. Davis lived until 1989. And even at Crawford's funeral, Davis couldn't resist one final insult. When asked about her rival's death, Davis said, "You should never say bad things about the dead, only good. Joan Crawford is dead. Good." That's the level of hatred we're talking about. A rivalry that lasted until death and beyond. But here's what's really shocking. That legendary feud from Hollywood's golden age, it was nothing compared to what's happening on movie sets right now. Because today's stars have social media. They have instant communication with millions of fans. And when they decide to go to war with each other, the entire world gets to watch it happen in real time. And some of these modern feuds are so explosive, they're destroying careers faster than ever before. But even these recent conflicts are nothing compared to what's brewing behind the scenes right now. Because there's one current feud that's so explosive, so career-ending, that the actors involved have hired teams of lawyers just to keep the story from getting out. The contracts they signed are so strict that breaking them would mean financial ruin. The studios involved are spending millions on private investigators to track down leaks. And the story they're all trying to hide. It involves two of the biggest stars in Hollywood. A production worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And an incident so shocking that when it finally comes to light, it's going to change everything we think we know about how movies really get made. The question isn't if this story will break. The question is when. And who's going to be brave enough to tell it first? Here's what we do know. It happened during filming of a major superhero movie. The kind of blockbuster that makes or breaks entire studios. Two A-list actors who were supposed to be best friends on screen couldn't even look at each other off camera. The first sign something was wrong came when production suddenly shut down for 2 weeks. The official story was script revisions. But crew members started talking. They said they witnessed something that made everyone uncomfortable. Something that crossed professional lines completely. Emergency meetings were called. Not just with the director or producers. Studio executives flew in from different countries. Lawyers were brought in immediately. And everyone who witnessed what happened was asked to sign new contracts with penalties so severe that speaking out would destroy their lives financially. But here's what makes this different from every other Hollywood cover-up. This incident was recorded. Security cameras captured everything. And somewhere, that footage still exists. The studios thought they could bury it. They thought their lawyers and their money could make it disappear. But in today's world, nothing stays hidden forever. Someone always talks. Someone always leaks. And when they do, the explosion is going to be massive. There are rumors that one of the actors involved is already planning to break their silence. That they're tired of living with the secret. That they're ready to tell the world what really happened, no matter what it costs them. Other insiders say the studio is preparing for the worst. They're already planning how to handle the publicity disaster. They're considering whether to fire both actors or try to salvage the franchise somehow. But here's the most shocking part. This isn't the only current secret Hollywood is desperately trying to keep buried. There's another incident from a different production. A romantic comedy that was supposed to be light and fun. But something happened between the leads that was so inappropriate, so completely unprofessional, that the studio considered scrapping the entire movie. They had already spent $40 million. They had committed to a release date. But what happened on that set was so bad that executives seriously considered losing all that money rather than risk the story getting out. In the end, they decided to finish the movie. But they hired a crisis management team before it even came out. They prepared statements. They had lawyers on standby. They were ready for war. The movie was released quietly. It made some money but disappeared quickly. And the two stars involved, they haven't worked together since. In fact, one of them has barely worked at all. And there's a third story that's even more recent. A television series that was supposed to run for multiple seasons. Big budget. Major network. Stars that everyone recognizes. But during filming of the second season, something happened that was so explosive, so career-damaging, that the entire show was canceled overnight. Not because of ratings. Not because of money. Because of an incident that made continuing impossible. The network claimed it was a creative decision. They said they were exploring new directions. But industry insiders know the truth. They know that whatever happened on that set was so bad that everyone involved agreed it was better to lose millions than risk the real story coming out. These aren't isolated incidents. These are patterns. Hollywood's biggest stars are more out of control than ever before. The money is bigger. The egos are bigger. And when things go wrong, they go wrong in ways that would have been unimaginable in the past. Social media has made everything worse. One leaked video, one angry tweet, one insider willing to talk, and entire careers can be destroyed in minutes. The studios know this. They're terrified of it. That's why they're spending more on cover-ups than ever before. Lawyers, investigators, crisis managers, reputation consultants. The amount of money being spent to keep these stories buried would shock you. But every cover-up has a weakness. Every secret has someone who knows the truth. And in Hollywood, where everyone is looking for their big break, their moment in the spotlight, secrets don't stay buried forever. The question isn't whether these stories will come out. The question is which one breaks first. Which actor finally decides they're done staying quiet? Which insider finally decides to tell the truth? And when that happens, when that first domino falls, the entire system of Hollywood cover-ups is going to collapse. Because once one person talks, everyone talks. Once one secret comes out, they all come out. The war isn't coming to Hollywood. It's already here. The only question left is who's going to survive when the smoke clears.